Hey gang, John Bacarella here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Thursday, October 7th, and not much has changed out there water temperature wise on the lake. Water temp at Belle Isle today was actually like around 65-ish, and talking to guys that have been out on the water lately, that's about what they're seeing, 65, 66 degrees. So that temperature drop has slowed down because we're into a little bit warmer weather again. We're 70s for daytime highs, and the nights have been actually kind of warm. They've been around 60 degrees. So with all this cloud cover, and it was like foggy all day today out here. I mean, visibility out on the lake was pretty low. But that didn't keep the guys from going out fishing and catching some fish, because we are into that fall pattern now, and these fish can be anywhere all the way up to right up on shore in that 60-degree water to all the way out in the middle of the lake in the deepest part. So that's the downside to it, but the plus side is the fish that are there are feeding, and they're starting to lose cover rapidly out there as the weeds start to decay and break down this time of the year. So the fish are schooling up, and the water's cleaned up a lot since a lot of that big rain that we had a week or so ago. We keep getting some little fronts moving in with more rain, but by and large, the conditions out there, the water clarity is pretty good. So you've got kind of a mixed bag of water clarity. You'll get into some areas out there, like I talked to guys that were over on the Canadian side, and they were in some pretty dirty water over there. And then once they moved out into some cleaner water, they got into some fish really good. And you can say the same thing over here on the American side, is that, like right in the mouth of the spillway, you're going to have some really dark water coming out, and mouth of the Clinton River probably as well. Any of these, areas that are dumping that runoff out there, you're going to get some dirtier water, but you're also going to get some mud lines, and you're going to get some good variation out there, which is going to give you some of that structure to fish, right? Because the change in water clarity is another form of structure, and this time of the year, it's also a food source for a lot of these bait fish, which are also coming in. I had reports today of some really big schools of shad moving in around the Metro Park, even back in the Metro Park itself. And so that's really going to trigger some big time fall feeding patterns for every species, for largemouths, for northerns, smallies, walleyes, everything. I mean, everything loves eating, especially shad, when you can find those schools. So let's talk a little more specifics right now. If you guys read my post last week, we didn't do a video, but we did a post on our Facebook page, and not much has really changed since last week. If you want to go back and read it, in case I missed something this week, you can read that one. Everything from last week still applies this week. Perch fishing out there has been really good. Mike Martin, I know, was out there again with Mike Martin Outdoors, and they got another, I think today they got another limit of perch out there. So if you're looking to go out with a perch charter, he's one of the few guys out here that's doing that, and they did really good again, and just some gorgeous fish. Everybody that I'm talking to is catching really nice fish. That doesn't mean they're not into areas where they're getting small fish, but by and large, after a couple of moves, they get into some nice fish, and it doesn't matter whether you're on the American side, down by the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club, all the way down to the by the mouth of the Detroit River, or all the way up to 9 Mile, and for that matter up to the 400 Club, and go further north, you can go by Strawberry or by Grassy. There's perch all over the lake right now, and you just got to move around to these different weed beds until you get on a hot school of bigger fish. And once you do that, you're going to catch fish. And in some cases, I mean, the minnow bite's been really good, and we do have emerald shiners now at both stores, but also the crawler bite has been good too. And some of the guys have told me that the fish were hitting the little fish were hitting the minnows so much, they actually switched over to pieces of worm out there just to conserve bait, so that they didn't burn through their bait too fast. So, and sometimes when you get these smaller fish and these bigger shiners, those little fish, those little perch will grab those shiners and rip them off, and you just end up wasting a minnow on those little fish. So sometimes you're better off switching over to worms, or even drop shotting them, with like a lot of you guys fishing from shore will use like Panfish Assassins, or some of the other the small plastics that we have, like the Thump'em minnows, or the Berkeley Gulp minnows. I mean, you can switch up and use those as well, especially on like our drop shot style perch rigs, or just rigging up, the old, like if you're a bass fisherman, set up a regular drop shot rig and fish those plastics too. When you get into those situations out there where you just have a ton of furiously feeding small fish. Sometimes if you put those artificials on down there, you'll actually catch more of the bigger fish on the artificials than you will on the live bait. So it's just, you know, one of those tips. But anyways, the perch fishing's going. Guys are not having trouble catching nice bags of perch out there. Remember, 25 fish limit now, so, you know, bring your clicker and you can only count up to 25, not to 50. So, but be selective. There's some really nice fish. Walleye fishing, not hearing a ton right now, although it's that time of the year where the jigging, we're starting to sell more jigs and plastics again, which tells me the guys up there on the St. Clair River are starting to jig those walleyes up. This is also the time of the year where the mosquito numbers go down and the whippers come back out, because in the middle of the summer, whipping out there can just be miserable with all them skeeters. But now that we got some cooler nights, the mosquito numbers are dropping down, and as we go later and later into the fall, that walleye bite up on the St. Clair River will just increase. It's also that time of the year that you will get that big school that'll form down there by the Delphine Channel. Now, I haven't heard that that's happened yet, and it is a little bit early because the water's still relatively warm, but that is going to explode down there as well. Now, the guys that are perch fishing are catching some walleyes. So the walleyes are definitely out there, but there's just not as many guys targeting them right now. Everybody's really focusing on the perch bite that's going on. Same thing with the smallmouth fishery. Smallmouths, the fishermen are getting a little more tight-lipped, but the guys that are catching perch are catching plenty of smallmouths, sometimes to the point that they have to move in some cases out there. So, you know, if you're a bass fisherman, find those perch guys right now and you're going to find the smallies. They are not going to be far away. That's almost a guarantee right now. You're going to have bait fish there, you're going to have perch there, and you're going to have the smallmouths there as well. Same thing with the muskies. The muskies are going to be in and around all that feeding activity, and that spillway is also going to start to fire up even more than it has been the last few weeks for you casters out there wanting to chase those muskies over here on the American side. This is that time of the year where if you're a muskie fisherman, you can start to think like a largemouth fisherman, and you can just go in and you can pound a lot of that close to shore, near shore, and shoreline structure, canal mouths, all that stuff that the guys chasing largemouths would target. It's not uncommon to catch muskies in those areas this time of the year on the American side. However, that Canadian side is still going strong for the guys running over there fishing for those skis, and that's not going to change. These fish are just going to keep feeding heavier and heavier as we get into that, you know, that fall pattern, that, you know, when we get down into the 50s and 40s and all the way to ice up for the muskie guys. I mean, they'll be out there running, breaking ice sometimes, getting out of the canals to chase some skis. So that's just going to keep going. Let's see. So we talked about wallies, we talked about smallies a little bit, and definitely perch. And there's another species of fish, and I want to give a shout out to Michael Downey for Relentless Grind Charters up there on the St. Clair River. The guy, he chases those sturgeon out there at night. And for any of you folks that really want to, you know, put a check mark in that bucket list for sturgeon, Michael's the guy that can do it for you out there. And he had really a unique fish that he caught this week. I mean, they got some big sturgeon, but he got this little itty bitty teeny sturgeon that is just, I think, one of the coolest fish I've ever seen. And you know, just a juvenile sturgeon, just a little bitty guy, and they're almost translucent, like the nose is almost translucent, and just a really cool little fish. And so, you know, to keep things in perspective, you can see these little tiny sturgeon, and they grow up to be these immense, you know, 100-pound giants, or like that one that they got earlier this year in the Detroit River. I think it was like 10 or 11 feet. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing. It keeps things in perspective when you can see these little bitty juveniles and yet see these giant monsters out there. So yeah, sturgeon fishing, if you haven't done it, it's catch and release only now this time of the year, guys. There is no catch and keep, so that season is closed. But these fish are just amazing fish, and you're on one of the greatest fisheries probably in North America for sturgeon with that St. Clair River fishery. So that's definitely get out and experience that at least once. They're really cool fish. They actually jump too a lot of times, which is amazing when you get a fish that size that actually breaches. So it's pretty cool. Panfish fishing going and starting to pick up in the canals. Actually have a little mayfly hatch happened this week, which is not completely, you know, extraordinary for this time of the year. Normally October is about the last time that we'll see them. Usually that they're little bitty tiny white ones we'll see this time of the year, but there's been a few of those bigger mayflies hatching, as my buddy Michael Vertek took a picture of, and you know, you just this time of the year. So yeah, so that'll, you know, if you get a localized hatch going, that'll definitely get them you know, bluegills and other panfish going. But this time of the year also, they're just starting to pick up, and they feed. The bite on those fish is starting to get better and better as well, as they're feeding in and around the shoreline. And as the boats are coming out, which they are in the marinas, that means your access is going to get better for the guys with kayaks and small boats in the marinas until we get into dock season, which isn't, it's about a month away. So about 4 weeks and we'll probably officially have dock season. And when the last boat comes out in that canal behind our Selfridge store, we'll let you know. And then you guys will be able to go back in there like you have before. So with that said, if you're not out hunting, chasing them ruffed grouse or them deer or squirrels or geese, or you know, whatever your fall time passion is, if you have a chance and the weather behaves itself, get out there on Lake St. Clair and enjoy it. This is a great time of the year to get out and chase just about everything. Hey, if you like this video content and you want to get updated as soon as the next video is out there, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon, and you'll get notified as soon as the next video is up.